bin zurück mit
I'm gonna be honest a little bit. I'm nervous. I'm
Okay.
nervous if Mary's around. I'm not
No,
nervous
no,
about
no.
talking to you, but I'm nervous if Mary's around. You know why? Because I love Mary. I've been following your wife, Mary, for years. She's a makeup artist and she's
Mm,
like amazing. And I've watched her for years. I've been a fan. And
mm,
I'll tell you a funny story. You and I have a mutual friend, a tall
yeah.
mutual friend. And
Mm,
one day he sent me a message and he's like, "Oh, I'm here hanging out with your friend right now." And I said,
mm,
"Who are you hanging out with?" And he's like, "Mary." And I'm like, "Mary who?" And he's like, "Mary, Josiah's wife." I'm like, "Oh, I've never met her." And he goes, "Oh, I thought
okay.
that you were friends with her." And I'm like, "No, I'm
Mm,
friends with Josiah." And I
mm,
said, "I've never met her, although I love her work. I'm a huge fan." I said, "No."
yeah.
So it's kind of a funny story.
That's
So
awesome.
Josiah, I wanted to have you on here because I had my friend Jake Nager, who's a drummer, and on
Mm,
here in another podcast, and I said, Jake is playing like 6 Degrees of Separation with Jake. Like, what
mm.
band has Jake been in? And I kind of feel that with you, like it's that you've been in so many bands. It's like name a band that Josiah hasn't like been in, worked with, played with,
Yeah.
hung out with.
Yeah.
You're kind of everywhere. But funny, I've known you over, I would say like 15, 16 years now, but I don't
Yeah.
really know about like the beginnings of like
Yeah.
you and I obviously have a lot of mutual friends. We
Mm,
have a lot of the same taste in music. I will get
mm.
into some of the bands you're in because I'm a super fan of like one of the bands that you're in. Not that I'm not a fan of all, but I'm a super
Mm,
fan
yeah.
of one of the bands you're in.
Mm.
But you know, where did you grow up?
And in Boston, actually, yeah. Um, but as soon as I graduated high school, I was out of there. I moved
Yeah.
to New York, then Chicago, and then now LA. To kind of
Yeah.
like slowly made my way across the coast.
So, do you remember how but part of why I started this podcast was I'd just been talking to my
Mm,
son and thinking about
mm,
like how is he discovering music, at 14? How are kids
yeah.
discovering music today? Because it's so different from like how you or I discovered music.
Mm,
And do you remember like what were some of those bands that kind of took you across that threshold of like what you were listening to as like maybe what your parents had on to the background until you
mm,
got to that point where you're like, "I like this band. This is a band
mm.
I" Do you remember what some of those bands were?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, my parents like I always remember they like listen to Wings a lot
Yeah.
and like lot like hippy dippy stuff. But my brother and I have an older brother, so he got turned on to cooler music before I got my ears on it, you know. So
Yeah.
I kind of inherited whatever he was listening to, and he was a big metalhead like in the '80s, and like like Kiss and
Yeah.
AC/DC, that kind of music. For me, like I mean I was a big new wave kid, like I remember one record in particular. Are we talking about records or
Yeah. Anything.
there was like a compilation. It came out when I was 8. It was K-Tel's like Rock 80. Do you
Oh,
remember like
wow.
K-Tel records?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They were
yeah,
like
yeah.
comps, but it had like
Yeah.
Gary Newman and it had like the
Oh,
Pretenders on there and the Knack
nice.
and like Cheap Trick. And that was like a big groundbreaker for me, for like alternative music because like
Yeah.
both my brother and I were skateboarders too, so we listened to a lot of like hardcore punk and even ska and stuff.
Skate culture went with music because I
Oh,
discovered so many punk bands and underground punk bands because they partnered together with people making skate videos. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
there's like so many ways that we got music. And so that
Mhm.
was a huge way, skate videos,
Yeah.
you know? And so
Yeah.
it's funny because sometimes kids get music now from video games of skating,
Mhm.
and they may hear
Mhm.
or like, different video games they get music from, so
Yeah.
it's definitely different. I can hear and obviously in a lot of those influences that you're saying now that I'm like,
Mhm.
"Uh-huh." Like, obviously,
Mhm.
the new wave, I kinda knew that you liked
Mhm.
new wave, but
Yeah.
I have heard you play other things, and so now I can hear kind of like those
Yeah.
influences of, like, metal in there as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
And do you remember, like, what was maybe, like, that album, though? There's sometimes people it's like some people can't pinpoint, but some people know right away when I ask them, like,
Mhm.
And they're like, "Yeah, I know what album it was."
Yeah.
Did you have an album?
Well, my brother took home like The Cure. That was a big game changer. I think Head on the Door. That was a huge record for me. And then also Ministry.
Yeah,
He brought home a Twitch. I think it was like their second album. It was a really
yeah,
weird record. But those two albums are like really like shot me out into like more like indie. Back then it was called college rock, right? But
yeah,
like
yeah,
I started getting college rock.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, college rock definitely was such a huge way to discover music. I mean, if it
Mhm.
I mean, that's where I heard Fugazi, like, I wouldn't hear that
Mhm.
off of a regular station, but it was like
Yeah.
the college radio was like almost like having a big, cooler older brother or older
Mhm.
sister that was, like, sharing
Mhm.
the record collection with you, and that
Yeah,
was, like, the
yeah.
cool thing about college radio, and now they don't really have that, do they?
Yeah.
I guess they maybe do, like, at colleges, they probably do.
I had this record store in Boston that I used to go to. It was Newbury Comic. Was like a big record store. And Amy Mann from Till Tuesday, she was the cashier. I had a big crush on her.
Oh,
No,
wow, that's
yeah,
so
but
cool.
I used to go
Oh,
there to get NME and Melody Maker, because that's how
yeah,
I found out about a lot of bands,
yeah.
was through NME and Melody Maker.
Yeah, for sure, which I mean, because it was a completely different experience, and I don't think that I know that you and I like a lot of those same bands from Europe, that it was
Mm,
hard to find a lot of information about it. It's the same thing, yeah, Melody Maker and Enemy,
mhm.
and you look through there and see like what was
Yeah.
good. And how old were you when you left Boston?
I was 19.
19.
I went to Parsons School of Design in New York
Yeah.
City.
Where'd you study there?
Photography. My dad, he owned a chain of like photo stores in
Yeah.
Boston. So it was kind of an easy hobby for me because I got like free photos class. It was cheaper.
Yeah.
That stuff was expensive. Well, I guess like I was always in school band. I
Yeah.
played drums in school band, and then I quit once it turned into the marching band
Yeah.
because a lot of those kids kind of got teased a lot and bullied. So I didn't want to wear the uniform.
Yeah, yeah, I
It's
mean,
kind of
it's funny because it was the same, like, at our high school, like, a lot of kids got teased for being in marching band, but I tell you, I'm a sucker for marching bands, like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
cry, like, I was really lucky, like, our high school hosted a huge it was like the Sun Devil Invitational, like, in
Boom,
Southern
boom.
California, and it was like we
Yeah.
lived across the street from the band, so every year we'd get our lawn chairs out, we'd go to the street, dad and I,
Boom.
and we just watch because he played in bands, like, when he was
Yeah,
young. So it was just, like, pretty cool. I love marching bands, and
me
every time
too.
I watch, like, Macy Days parades and New Year's
Boom,
parades,
boom.
like,
Yeah,
that's my favorite part. I think
yeah,
that's my favorite part because I just
yeah,
think that's so cool.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's another thing about you is that you are a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah,
Do you think that knowing how to play different things has helped and knowing how to play a lot of different things has helped you?
I think like multi-tracking, like I got a 4-track set, and spent a lot of time by myself, and with a drum machine, and then I got a bass and a guitar, an effects unit and a microphone, and just really learning how to record taught me how to play,
Yeah.
because I didn't really have like, hey, can you, like I had to play everything. in order to make like a full song or composition.
So do you think that, so did you start doing that before you actually got together with other people?
Oh no, actually, I played drums in an industrial band, in like a goth industrial band in
Really?
Boston. Yeah. I
Wow.
I had an electronic drum kit. I really wish I still had that drum kit, but yeah. So I that this is before I moved to New York for
Yeah.
college, but I played in a high school band, like industrial goth band. We played our high school battle of the bands, and
Oh,
we ended up covering a Gary Newman. We played Cars. I
oh,
sang
nice.
that one. I like programmed the drum machine and I sang that one. And then
That's cool.
we did some Bauhaus and we did a Jesus Mary Chain cover too.
Nice.
But we
I love the
lost.
Battle of the Bands.
But yeah, we the judges of my high school battle of the bands were the guys from that band Boston,
From Boston. Wow.
Boston
Yeah,
in
Boston,
Boston.
in Boston. Nice.
Yeah.
Which some may say inspired Nirvana, right?
Right, right. Yeah.
The whole More Than a Feeling is like a lot of people think that it sounds quite similar to
Yeah.
Smells Like Teen Spirit, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
When you went to New York, were you also like writing music and putting stuff together there?
No, no. I was only there for a year. Was living in the dorms,
Yeah.
and I
Did
don't
you get
know,
a
like
chance to go out and check out bands and go do the like EBGBs and
I didn't go to CBGBs. I was more in like the club world. So my roommate was like a big club kid in New York, and he was like always on the guest list to all these like crazy nightclubs, and
yeah,
I met some murderers there. One murder. This guy Michael Alec. He
yeah.
he ran these parties called it was called Disco 2000, and I met him multiple. I actually went to his apartment. His roommate was Lady Bunny, which is a famous like
Scene
yeah
person.
yeah. But yeah, I guess I was more a part of that world, like the socialite, like club kid world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was wild.
It's funny, I had a friend that used to go to like maybe a couple, years before that. Was it oh God,
Oh,
Lime
Limelight,
Limelight, yeah.
Limelight,
But
yeah.
she said that when she went,
Mm,
this will age her. She's like there was a man named Hans, and Hans was really cool, but then Hans left because he started going out with this singer, Grace Jones. Well,
mm,
Hans turned
mm.
out to be Dolph Lundgren.
Oh wow,
So so he
crazy.
was like yeah, so like he was like the door guy there. So that's pretty
Mm,
cool. And
mm,
and I think that like he left. I think the story is that he left. He was going to go to MIT to study
mm.
like I think chemistry or something, molecular chemistry or something, and like left
Okay.
because he fell in love with Grace Jones.
Oh wow,
So
that's
that's
pretty
kind of
cool.
cool. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Like she's like really intense, but I
Mm,
love her. Like she's had
yeah.
some like really cool stuff.
Mm.
So then you finished school and
Um,
you had
I moved to Chicago after that.
why'd you pick
I
Chicago?
transferred to the School of the Art Institute. I was pretty lonely in New York, like even though it's such a huge city, it's like no, it was pretty cold, like I didn't have any friends, like
Yeah,
I don't know, yeah, it was pretty lonely city, especially maybe it was just my age, I was
yeah,
19, didn't know anybody, but I visited Chicago and I like fell in love with it. It's people are like so nice there. And that
yeah,
whole Midwest, like I mean, I still love it.
yeah.
Chicago is great. I lived there for 12 years, and
Wow.
yeah, I met my wife there, Mary.
Yeah.
She grew up there. Yeah.
Now what is because Chicago, if for a lot of people that haven't gone to Chicago,
Mm,
it's like a big city. Like people think of it as like such a big city, and that
mm,
part of the city is a big city. But like you said, it is like very kind of Midwest,
mm,
rural, rural. How was like what I love so many bands from there, um,
yeah.
all across the board. I mean, so much great music came out of there. What was it like at the time that you were living there? Like what?
I
And
I
like I
mean, it
said, there's
was
so many great bands that came out of there.
yeah. But I guess before like the whole grunge thing, there was that record label Wax Trax Records,
Yeah.
and there was a pretty awesome like industrial like underground scene there. And I think that's kind of what drove me to move there was because of that scene. But then then like Smashing Pumpkins and Root Salt and Liz Fair, all those bands were happening when I moved there, and it was pretty exciting time music. Um, like I started playing in my first band. It was called Motorhome. It was me and two other gals, but we were like kind of a noise rock band, and
Yeah.
that's how I met Billy. We had a loft space. We had an old bank. It was called United States Citizens Bank of America, and we lived there. It was like a big loft space, and we were able to like build our own rooms. And we didn't have any neighbors. We would just play music all night long. It was
How
pretty
many people lived
wild.
in that?
It was myself and my girlfriend at the time, and two or three other people. But I don't know if you're familiar with Wesley Willis. He was like a 350-pound like schizophrenic man, who was a musician, and he was kind of like a underground like singer. But he rehearsed there too.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but he has some funny songs if you ever want to search him on YouTube. He has like a song
Nice.
called his biggest song is called Rock and Roll McDonald.
Nice. It'll be one of those things that so we have like a for every episode we have like a bonus content like
Yeah.
page and we just like throw all the stuff that we talk on so that'll be something
Mm-hmm.
cool to go down those rabbit holes
Yeah.
because I thought that's kind of like what I wanted like if some of like my Angus my son's friends like listen to like this and
Mm-hmm.
I thought that's a cool way for them to try to like discover music as well because don't have a lot of they don't have a lot of the same resources. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, like some of the stuff they listen to these days, kids, it's
It is
just
it's no bueno.
no way. Like I don't want to be one of those prudish people. Like I don't want to be like my parents were. Like, what are you listening to? What crap
Yeah.
are you listening to? I was really super, super fortunate. Like my dad played in he was like a young performer. Like so he was playing in Atlantic City in New York as an accordion player when he was
Oh
young.
no
That's like
way.
what he did.
That's so
He was
cool.
Polish American. So he did that. So we had like gigs doing polka parties and bar
Mm-hmm.
mitzvahs and um so he kind of I was like always surrounded by big bands from him,
Mm-hmm.
classical music, like, but my mom, she was Asian and obviously she loved Western stuff, so she loved rock and roll. When I was growing up, he's always giving me these records of like here's Benny Goodman, listen to this record. But she's giving me Cars and Kiss.
Oh wow. Nice.
I was really, really fortunate, like
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
fortunate.
You're in San Diego, right? Is that where you
Yeah.
grew up? Cool.
Well, I was born in the Midwest. I was actually
Mm.
born in Kansas, like, I was born in
Oh
the
no
Midwest,
way. Oh, okay.
and, I think it we were just a couple of months and because my dad was in the Army, so then we
Mm.
moved to Japan,
Oh
and
wow.
I was there till maybe, like, I don't know,
Good.
5 or so, and then moved back to California, and then moved to the Philippines, and then I lived in the middle of a jungle for, like,
Oh
6
wow.
years, which was, like, really crazy, and, like, when, I tell some of my students, I'm like, "I lived in the middle of a jungle," and then I pulled up the
Mm.
Google Maps, there was just like, "Whoa, we thought you like, adjacent." I'm like, "No,"
Mm.
and we zoom out, and here's, like, my tiny house, and it's like, as they zoom out, we're really at this, like, tip of a peninsula, and, like,
Mm.
270 degrees around me is, like, wild jungle.
Oh wow.
So and they're like, "Whoa." And I remember telling a student one time I was telling her
Mm.
all this, and she had just transferred, and so she, like, raised her and she really didn't talk much. She raised her hand. She's like,
Mm.
"Were you wild?" And I was
Yeah.
like, "What do you" she's like, "Why were you living in a jungle?" I'm like, "Oh, it was like we were in a base." I was and she
Yeah.
thought, like, I was an indigenous person, you know?
Right.
But that's kind of like a sweet, like, kids, what they think. So that's really crazy that you got to live there during that whole like kind of industrial because there's so many
Yeah.
industrial like I call them industrial punk
Mm.
bands that came out of
Mm.
Chicago, like
Yeah.
Jesus Lizard. I'm
Oh
I'm a
right. Yeah. Yeah.
huge huge fan of those bands, Shellac, all that. A lot of the stuff that
Mm.
Steve Albini was doing, I was
Mhm.
a huge Big Black fan.
Mhm.
And Big Black
Yeah.
was one of those things that it was the VHS for Pig Pile. And I
Mhm.
remember put that on at home, but they played this song, Dead Billy.
Mhm.
And that's where he left it at. Like, so that was my first introduction to Big Black was a song called Dead Billy. And the first thing I noticed was that they've got the guitar strapped around the waist as opposed to, and I'm thinking pretty, unusual, but then the intensity, was that intensity still there at the time that you were there?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess like I was kind of at the tail end of that though, I would
Yeah,
say, in Chicago. I think the Pumpkins were at their almost at their peak when I
yeah,
moved there, But I met Billy, where did I meet him? I don't know, I used to go over his house and play him my demos from that first band I was telling you about, Motorol.
yeah.
And I had like a 4-track cassette, and Billy had offered to produce our first single. Like,
Nice.
so he would give me some criticism. We would go over his house and he would critique our songs and stuff.
Is how was like the music scene over there in terms of like bands at that time? Were they like, I mean, were everybody super supportive? Because it's interesting as I talk to different musicians in different cities, it's like
Mm.
every city's really, really different in terms of like how the music scene is. Are they supportive of one another? How was it at that
Yeah,
time?
I think it was pretty supportive. It was, I mean, all these major labels were coming and offering pretty much like every band there, like a record deal.
Yeah.
So, and my band was one of them, and we got offered a record deal from Warner Brothers, which we ended up turning down because a lot of our friends were getting these huge record deals, big advances, like $1 million+ advance, and none of their records would come out. They just be a tax write-off for the labels. So we chose to go with a friend's indie label. But I think because it was still very competitive, but a lot of fans were, sharing bills, and there was a little bit of camaraderie there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a really exciting time though. I guess like but it was harder to like make recordings there. You couldn't just get on a laptop
Yeah.
and shoot out a garage band demo, you know. You had
That's
to like
true.
pay
Yeah.
a lot of money to go to the studio to record something, like I guess that's why I got into recording because going in the studio was not an option for me. I couldn't afford,
Yeah.
$1,000 a day to go record my ideas in the studio. So I was like,
Yeah.
I gotta learn how to do this on my
Yeah.
little shitty 4-track.
Yeah, I think it is definitely different for kids today, and when I say kids, I just mean anybody to make music is so different. It's like you can theoretically just be at home on your computer and make music, and that's really cool in the sense that people now can express their art almost immediately. And it was a struggle back then. And I mean, I remember when I was like 19 and I was managing a band. It was a friend's band. And for us, it was like a struggle just to find practice spaces and
Yeah.
and like safe practice spaces that weren't like sketchy. Um, but having those kinds of things though, like you said, you shared practice spaces. And I mean, those were great experiences too. I remember one day we were in this studio. It was called Soundtracks, and Soundtracks was the studio. It was down like in the middle of all the strip clubs, like in down in San Diego. But their cool claim to fame is you walked in, they had a gold record of Stone Temple Pilots because when
Oh,
Stone Temple Pilots was still like Mighty Joe Young, that was
mm,
their little practice space too. But we'd
okay.
go in. I remember being in there one day and the band I was managing was a band called Model Citizen. They were a punk band and we're
Okay.
pretty loud, right? But we heard
Yeah.
like this sound coming like from the studio next door. To remember, it's something like out of I think I've unplugged myself. Something out of like a movie where it's almost like the Run DMC Aerosmith video for Walk
Mm.
This Way, where
Oh
we
yeah.
like hear something and we're just like, what is it? And all of us had our ears pressed against the wall, and we went and asked like the guy Milos, who was
Mm.
the guy that running it, and we're like, what band is that? And he's like, oh, it's a new band, and he was like from Czech Republic or something, Milos, and he was just like, new band, Locust, and I was like, the Locust. But I mean,
Oh
you've heard the Locust before. It
yeah,
was just
yeah.
like, and this is like, they're, I think they just gotten together, and we were just like, wow,
Mm.
that's so crazy. But you don't go into practice spaces. You don't get those kind of experience anymore of like hearing these like bands coming up.
Well, luckily, like here at my studio, I record bands at like a rehearsal spot here in LA, and
That's really cool too.
there's like 40 bands on the other side of my wall.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
yeah,
Your, so your studio is at a recording like,
yeah, yeah.
and do you
Um,
just rent it?
I just ran it. Yeah, that's where I'm at
Nice.
now. Yeah,
That's nice. That's really, really nice. And are there ever any bands that you listen to that you're like really super excited about?
around here,
Yeah.
um, Autolux had a room a couple doors down. They're not here anymore. Fleet Foxes was here. Also, Silver Sun Pickups. They're
Yeah.
still here. Um, I heard they just use their room for storage. But when I first moved here, I've been in this room for a while. The room I was in, that I am in, that band, the Warlocks, was formed here.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
used to rehearse here. But yeah, a lot of cool LA bands started out here.
Yeah.
That band Dive is here. I'm
Hmm.
pretty sure.
Yeah.
I really like their
I really
band.
like them too. I
Yeah.
like them too. That's a really cool thing about it seems like everybody in LA, it is this very small world in the
Mhm,
music
mhm.
community. A lot of people don't realize it, but I mean, everybody kind of seems to know everybody else. And I think that
Yeah.
that's such an important thing. But I also think that when you have those kind of communities like that, that it's beneficial because it seems like everybody kind of helps everybody else,
Mhm,
which
mhm,
is really cool. And
mhm,
that's one thing that is maybe lacking.
mhm.
That's hard if you're just at home trying to make something. So there's like give and takes of it.
I hate to say it, but like when I first moved here, I really thought there was a scene of bands. I mean, that were like a kind of a collective, like the band Granddaddy and
Hmm.
Early Mart, and there was a pretty cool scene in like Silver Lake when I first
Yeah,
moved here. But I feel like, I mean, Silver Sun Pickups were a part of that scene as well.
yeah,
They've been around for a long time. But I really feel like it has kind of dissipated and everybody else is kind of out for themselves.
yeah,
Nowadays, I really don't see like bands like a collective. When I
yeah.
first moved here, yes, but now it just seems like everybody's out for themselves, you know?
Yeah, I would definitely say like
Mm,
15, 16 years ago when I
mm,
was in LA with you, and it was something
mm.
that I had noticed just because I had friends that, I grew up in LA, or not LA, in San Diego. So I was really
Right.
used to that music scene. And that's a really, really strong, strong community, I think.
Yeah.
Not just within the bands, but even like within the fans, like music fans, like you
Mm.
just see the same people like at
Yeah,
different
yeah.
shows. It's like just because we're much smaller than LA. And
Mm,
that was really, really nice. And then when I went and lived in LA, a lot of times if my friends' bands were going to play in LA, they're like, "Hey, come up there," and we would kind of like sit, and it was
mm,
it was really different because like in San Diego, bands come and they'd immediately everybody kind of got together. Hey, man, where you from? Where you guys staying?
mm.
Where are you going? Where are you playing after this? Who have
Yeah,
you been
yeah,
playing with? Like, here's our
yeah,
CD. Here's
yeah.
here's some stickers, dude, and um, like stickers. But when we were at LA, it was just like we got up there. And a lot of times, I'd go support my friend's band. We were like all in a corner,
Mm.
you know,
Oh,
and
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
and it was like kind of like sporadic. You didn't know if it was going to be like. I remember
Mm.
they played someplace not far from where I lived, and there's like four people showed up, But it was just like, and then they'd play another night, and there'd be a ton of people, and it was just like
Yeah.
you never really knew. It's
Yeah.
kind of like a anything goes.
Yeah.
And
But I think the pandemic definitely, like Live Nation went in and bought like all the small clubs, and now there's like less and less places for those communities to exist, really,
wow.
because they're like all corporate. It's kind of a
Yeah.
bummer. It really is, because it's like
Yeah.
when I first moved here, it was such a community, and it's kind of all gone now.
Yeah. Like, I even have friends that have written books
Mm,
about that community,
mm,
years prior to that, and it seemed
mm.
like really, really strong and for so many different reasons, and it
Yeah,
doesn't seem like
I know.
there's a
It's so
lot
sad.
now.
So
Sad,
sad.
that is sad.
Don't they say like bands are dead too, right? Like now it's
Yeah.
just solo artists, right? Like who
Yeah,
are
I
like,
I just read yeah, I read some kind of article recently where they said it's been a long time since a band like,
yeah,
bands have ruled, like, the top
mm,
40 or something, that it's been
mm,
a lot of kind of solo things.
mm.
Um, do you think that do you think that a lot of that is gonna eventually just die out? Like,
Bands?
do you think
uh,
they're just gonna take over? Do you think it's gonna be,
well,
like, the odd rarity?
I think there's still hope. You kids are getting into like shoegaze again, and like 90s rock,
Yeah. I'm actually yeah, you know what? I'm really happy because I'm seeing a lot of shoegaze acts or,
Mm,
old acts, and I don't wanna say old or legacy acts,
mm.
and I mean it in a respectful way when I say legacy, meaning that they've been around a long time.
Right,
And,
right.
like, Ride just came through Bangkok here,
Oh, no way.
and so that was really cool, and
Mm,
but I was stoked that Ride was coming here, Laz was
yeah.
coming here, but I was more stoked that they just played Mongolia because I
Mm,
thought, "Man, that's so cool." The
yeah, yeah.
people in Mongolia are
Mm,
into Ride after
yeah.
all these years, right?
Yeah,
It's not like,
yeah.
"Oh, they're into Ride now," or something, it's just like,
Yeah.
that's so cool to me, and I'm like,
That's pretty
"That's"
cool.
I'm stoked for a lot of these bands.
Yeah.
There's that kind of wave, though, where a lot of these bands are now getting the due recognition that
That's
maybe they might not have gotten, um,
mm,
before, maybe because of social media, and
right.
I think that's so cool. Like, I
Yeah.
love the love that, like, Tracy Chapman is getting now,
Oh, right,
um,
yeah.
like,
Or
just
even
because, like
Kate Bush.
yeah, Kate Bush, yeah, like, I thought that's so cool that she gets to come back and talk about a song that has been in that pretty much people that love music and people that appreciate music have always known
Mm,
that's a great song. You see a lot of other
mhm,
bands, Placebo covered that song, a lot of
mhm.
people cover that song, but it's, like, so
Yeah.
cool to see her getting that,
Yeah,
and,
that's rad.
like, she's iconic, so I think
Mm,
that's kind of the cool part now that a lot of
mhm,
bands are I mean, I was just watching some Pumpkins videos
mm.
and, like, they just played Wrigley Field, and I'm like,
Oh,
"That's awesome," just like some
yeah.
of the that you kinda see that they go from a lot of bands go from playing these big things to, for a while, not playing these big stadiums because that kinda all went out for a while,
Mhm,
the big
mhm.
I think even before COVID, there wasn't,
Yeah.
like, the big rock shows at, the stadium anymore, but
Yeah.
you're starting to see that come back, and that's
Mhm,
cool, and I think I don't know if it's just a protest against those times in COVID where everybody was locked in, or if
mhm,
it's kids wanting to experience that
mm,
huge like, things that we experienced.
mhm. Yeah.
So that's, like,
Good.
super, super cool. Have
That's
you
awesome.
gone to any shows yourself lately that you've been, like, super stoked about?
Oh man, I just saw Chaka Khan with Mary. Yeah, yeah.
So
She
cool.
loves Chaka Khan, so
Sh
that was the last concert I went to. I did see Smashing Pumpkins with Jane's Addiction. That was pretty awesome. That was maybe 2 years ago, but that was a
I
pretty
was just
amazing
talking
show.
to a friend saying that there's not a lot of bands that you could say
Mm,
get better with age. And it's not that
mm,
they get worse, but
mm.
there's not a lot of bands that, you listen to 'em now and you Jane's Addiction is one of those, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
so, so good. They've really, really, really gotten better with age, and it's nice to see that. as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's really, really cool. Um,
You know, because I listen and record music every day, so I don't go out as much as I used to, just because
yeah,
I'm constantly barraged by noise and music, kind
yeah.
of get desensitized after a while, you know.
Yeah, for me, I was a person that really, really loved music growing up, and then when I had my child, it was just like
Mm,
just take care of this, and then it music kind of fell out. Like when
mm,
he was like a baby,
yeah,
yeah, because I would put on like if when he was small and it was like time for him to take a nap, I'd put on things like Andrew Sisters, right? Because that was
yeah,
like
yeah,
chill. Like, I didn't want to put on like Barney or
yeah,
something, right? So
yeah,
I'd like put on things like Andrew Sisters,
mm,
some Billie
but,
Holiday kind of chill stuff. So that's always chill for him.
mm,
But then when he got up and running and he was toddler age, it was
mm,
just like playing catch up, trying to catch up. So I didn't have time to
mm,
listen to music. And it wasn't until like COVID,
mm,
when we were all at home and it was like me and him
yeah,
started listening to music.
yeah,
And that was like such a cool time because he started discovering a lot of music and stuff. And he
mm,
recently just asked me, he came to me and he's like, I want to go to a concert. Because he's like, and I
yeah,
want you to go with me. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, kind of worried, like, what was he going to ask me to go to? Because like last year, the year before, he's like, can we go to Rolling Loud, which was like Travis Scott and all that kind of
mm,
stuff, which,
right, right,
there was a Nicki Minaj came out, and it was like,
yeah,
okay, if
mm,
if you're interested, but nothing happened of that. So I was like
mm,
kind of waiting to see what he was going to say.
yeah.
But he picked the raddest band, and I'm so stoked. Cigarettes After Sex.
Okay, cool.
So that's going to be his first concert.
Really? Okay, that's
So
awesome.
that's really cool, and I'm excited. I think they've got a lot of like really cool chill tunes.
Mm,
And
mm,
like again, I wouldn't have discovered that band had I not had Instagram.
mm, mm,
Instagram is kind of serving, and I've talked to people about this before because definitely for your and my generation, that was a huge way for a lot of people to
mm.
get music with like MySpace was a huge place
Yeah,
for people to get
that's
music.
true.
And um, I think that because so many unsigned bands, think about all the different unsigned bands that people heard solely through
Mm,
that because they just like guerrilla campaigned,
mm,
putting themselves like trying to friend everybody. Um,
mhm.
and then that kind of went away um, when it was like replaced with Facebook, which wasn't really music centric. It went away.
Yeah,
But I'm starting to see that kind of come back with Instagram Reels,
Instagram,
TikTok, um,
TikTok.
which I don't even know if TikTok banned in the US now?
No, no, still
No.
happening.
I thought I thought it was banned over there, and because people were talking about it here, they're like, TikTok's banned in the US. I'm like, really?
No,
It's
not,
crazy.
no, no.
That's for me a way I discover music because I'm stuck in listening to the old stuff. There's so
Mm,
much
mm, mm.
good old
Yeah,
stuff and so
yeah.
much old stuff that I tend to like want to listen. Oh, let's go throw on Fleetwood Mac because I want to
Mm,
kind of share stuff. But
mm.
I do discover like a lot of great stuff now on
Yeah,
Instagram.
yeah.
Really. So there are different ways. Like I see a lot of people doing a lot of DIY kind of things, making their own videos and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really cool. When did you start getting into recording? Like, when did you
Um,
decide that you wanted to do it like professionally?
actually, the first time I went into Steve Albini's studio, that was probably in the early 2000s. I mean, I had always been recording my own music and recording my friends' bands too. I
Yeah.
had like a little home setup. I have friends' bands, but when I do you know that band Helium,
Hmm, hmm,
Mary Timony? My
hmm.
friend was playing drums for Mary Timony, and she invited me to go visit them. Like they were recording Mary Timony's first solo record. Well, they mostly recorded on an 8-track reel to reel, but Bob Weston was mixing it and at Electrical. So I went over there and I saw Steve Albini's studio, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, I want. This is like where I want to be,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it's such an incredible space,
yeah,
Electrical. So yeah, that was like a big moment for me, when I was like, oh, this is what I do, you know.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I moved to LA in 2005. I was working at a studio called King Size Sound Labs. I think that's where I first met you. You know, I freelance engineered at different studios. I worked at New Monkey Studios in Van Nuys. That was Elliott Smith's old spot. And you know, they still got all his equipment there. It's like a museum. New Monkey Studios, and then another studio in Alhambra. I'm the William at King Size, and he was like, you should record my album at your practice spot, and that's how I ended up here. Um, you know, they loaned me the money to get a Pro Tools rig and to go for it a little more seriously. You know,
Yeah.
recording albums like out of my rehearsal spot. You know, yeah.
And when you say William, you're speaking of William from Jesus and Mary Chain.
Yes, yes.
I remember being in that studio space with you, and it was, like, really cool. One of the things that I love about you and what a lot of people that also know you say about you is that we all love, like, you're just, like, one of the most chill, cool dudes ever. So, it's I'm stoked that you're on here.
Thanks.
I want to talk to you about because, I'm a super fan. I'm a super fan. I am a super fan of, one of your projects because you have many, but Child Seat. And Child Seat, what I love, there's so many things I love about Child Seat. But one of the things is the origin story of Child Seat. Do you mind talking about that? Because I think it's
No,
really cool how this came about.
it was during the pandemic, and I was making demos for my own personal project, Light FM, and you know, I had been producing this artist Maud, it's spelled Mawd, who I met in 2017. I heard her voice on Facebook, and I was like, I gotta work with this woman. I think her voice is incredible. So I invited her over to my studio to co-write with me, and we actually did a Depeche Mode cover. We covered "People Are People." I was like, I bet you she's never heard the song before. I bet she doesn't even know who Depeche Mode is. You know, because she's a lot younger than me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was right. She had never heard that song, or
That's so
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Ha she has a voice that I can only compare to Ann Wilson. When I hear her, when I listen to
Mm,
her, that's who I hear. Like, and
yeah,
when I'm
yeah.
talking about Ann Wilson, I'm talking about Ann Wilson at her peak.
Mm,
That's her vocals. Like, she's
mm,
got
mm.
vocals.
Yeah,
Like, she
yeah.
blows me away, and the first time I heard her vocals and
Mm,
your music, it is just like a perfect marriage of music and vocals. I
mm.
was like instant fan.
All right on.
And my son was an instant fan. And I remember like, because I
Yeah,
was just like happy. It's like
yeah,
happy, even when the stuff is like she's writing about personal
yeah.
things and hard
Mm,
things. But to me, I love it. It's just such a
yeah.
positive kind of a moving forward type thing. I
Oh yeah.
did you when you made your first song, like your first own song, did you know right
Mm-hmm.
away?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. You know, I got COVID, and I was doing like the 14-day
Quarantine?
isolation quarantine. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I did 14 days. So I was bored out of my mind, and I just started making songs on my laptop and then emailing them to Maddie, and she just wrote out like these incredible like lyrics and vocal melodies to the songs. That's pretty much how we were born through
Yeah.
quarantine. And yeah, she sent them back to me, and I was like, all right, we got something here. You know?
I love the kind of quirky videos that you guys do too. Um, and that's something that's always like super endearing to me. Like
Mm,
when you remember bands like Foo Fighters, like every Foo
mm.
Fighter video is almost like a quirky little video.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how your videos are. And so I look forward to them so much because they're always like super fun, are they as much fun to record those
Mm.
videos?
we do that mostly because we're poor, we do like DIY videos. But yeah, they're fun to record. I think we're gonna shoot one this week actually for a new
Nice.
single that's coming out in like 2 weeks. But yeah, yeah, that like I don't know, just not take yourself so seriously, and just have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it's I mean, it's like this, like when I started this podcast is so DIY. And
Yeah.
it was funny because I was talking to Desmond, my producer, who is
No,
not here because he can't wake up. And I'm pointing it out now that
is he in
I
Bangkok too?
yeah, he's in Bangkok too.
Oh, okay, okay, cool.
It's funny, he he's my son's math teacher. He's
Oh,
been
no
my
way.
son's math teacher for, like, 3 years at the high
Oh,
school,
okay.
and then,
Mm,
I said one
that's
day that I
awesome.
was thinking of doing a podcast. He's like, "Okay, like, when I'll do this." I'm like, "I don't know anything about sound
Yeah,
and all that." He's like, "I'll help you." And so,
yeah.
I'm getting better. Like, I it's funny because I just got this thing today, and
Oh, no way.
I had to Google it,
Is
like,
that
how
the pop filter or
no, it's just the whole it's like
oh,
it's a hanging set kind of
oh
suspended
yeah, okay.
mic thing, but Desmond wasn't around, so, like, I literally had to Google, like, what position that's how
Yeah.
bad I am at all this
Okay,
kinda stuff,
okay.
like, what is it supposed to be in a certain position? So,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
even know if this is right. So, it's really cool to, how is it working with Mary in doing these videos too? Because I know that she does the makeup for Maddie. Is that kind of fun working together?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I kind of just hang out in the other room when she does the makeup, but
Yeah,
she has like free, Maddie will give her some ideas and stuff. But Mary has like free reign to kind of do whatever she wants.
totally wanna have Mary on here because
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much of when you think about, in the past, like, music videos and stuff, so much
Mhm.
of what we see, the visual representation of what we see is makeup. And
Um,
so it's a rabbit hole I wanna go down, so but
yeah,
I'm super
yeah,
shy, and
yeah.
because 'cause I'm such a huge Mary fan, I feel like I'm gonna fangirl out and then not know what to say. Like, I'm nervous today, I'm like, "She's gonna watch this later," and I'm like, "Did I do my" like, I was really careful doing my
Do
makeup. I'm like,
makeup.
"Should I
I
need"
think
like,
your makeup looks
is it
good.
gonna is Mary gonna approve? And see, she would understand this, and that's why I wanna talk to her about it.
Mm,
She would understand people have different reasons for makeup, and mine is to hide.
yeah.
I like to hide, and she would totally get that. But, yeah, I love Mary, and I totally want to go down rabbit holes with her. Are you're still in the band with Light FM, and
Um,
and, are you guys still playing? Or
not really. My focus is pretty much child C.
yeah,
We write so much music. I was just counting the other day. We have almost like 40 songs recorded,
yeah.
unreleased songs.
Wow,
Like I've never
amazing.
written with somebody who can just kind of crap out music.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some really good stuff.
And I think
I'm
it's nothing to sneeze at too. I mean, she's an excellent lyricist. And are
um,
you guys writing lyrics together, or does she come with ideas, or
um,
how do you guys write? Because I mean, everything you guys do is just perfect in my eyes. Like I
thanks,
am in love. Like
thanks.
it's just like one song after the other. It's just boom, boom, boom. I love it. Like I said, I'm a super fan. But, like, how do you guys come about doing that? Like, just
Well, I usually write like little compositions, and then I'll give it a weird name, and sometimes those names end up being the song title or the theme of the song.
yeah,
Just because I write so much music that I don't want to put like song number one, song number two, song number three. So I'll just pick a random words and stick them together.
yeah.
But then when I send it to Maddie, she like sometimes makes it that the theme of the song.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, but like I said, I totally don't want to skip over
Mm,
she's a fantastic lyricist.
I think so
Um,
too.
and not especially these days with a lot of the
Mm,
music out there, if if you're listening on Spotify and you go to the lyric stuff, it's like,
mm.
"Hmm,
Yeah, yeah,
okay." You know?
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah. She.
rock on, that's cool, but yeah, I mean, it's and I'm always a fan of, and it's funny, we're huge fans of good lyricists, like, we
Mm,
appreciate
mhm.
good lyricists, um, because there's a lot of bands that, do have great this or great that, but then on top of it, having a great lyricist, I mean, it's like poetry,
Yeah,
I mean, it makes it and have good bands today with good lyricists,
mm,
that whole kind of act together
mhm,
is a whole act of poetry. It's like,
mm.
the modern day beat poets. You
Yeah.
guys are like modern day beat poets, but doing it in like a different form. So that's really, really cool. How was it? I saw you guys had a blast at the Austin City Limits
Oh, yeah.
last
Uh,
year. How was
South by
that?
Southwest.
Oh, South by
Yeah,
Southwest, sorry.
yeah, yeah.
How
Yeah,
was
yeah.
that?
We played a lot of shows. I think we played like 5 shows there, and I don't know. It was a lot of fun. We played a lot of parties. I think sometimes like the parties are more fun than like your actual showcase, you know.
Yeah.
But we all did get COVID, you know. uh,
Wow.
but we luckily we got it after our show, so we were able to play, and then we all got sick.
But see, but for you guys, it's like if you guys say we got COVID, that only means you're probably gonna write more songs.
Yeah, 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 definitely. But yeah, no, we
So
we had a good time.
so second album out. Do you guys have any plans to uh take your trip on the road further, go to Europe?
We really want to tour, you know. I've been hitting up my friends who are playing bigger bands, about letting us open for them. But
Yeah.
so far I haven't found anybody to take us with.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like she is a voice that needs to be heard.
Yeah,
And
it's
just because, like I said, there's not a lot of voices like Ann
mm,
Wilson, and you
mm,
know this because we've both been around a while. There's not a lot of times that you get those kind of
yeah.
voices, and so
I
it's
totally
just,
agree.
I mean, she just blows me away.
And I think, live, I think she's even more impressive. I think a lot of the times people
But I think
see
it's a
her perform.
combination
Yeah.
with you though, because it's like maybe if you like, obviously she's done other stuff prior to
Mm,
you, but
mm.
there's just something just together with what you're writing. And
Mm,
what's really cool too is you even had on one of your tracks, you invited Jeff Schroeder from
mm,
Smashing
mm,
Pumpkins to come and
mm.
play on that. And that's now another Smashing Pumpkins you've been in a band with or worked with, because you've
Oh yeah.
also
Oh, that's
worked with
true.
Nicole in
Right,
Light
right.
FM. So like I said, see, Josiah,
Yeah,
six
yeah.
degrees of Josiah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. I didn't
So
think
that's kind
about
of
that.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're just next it's gonna be Jack, right? And next
Yeah,
it's gonna
yeah.
be they got Kiki Wong, she's awesome.
Oh, I haven't seen her play. I
Yeah,
mean,
like,
I
'cause,
think I saw a
she had big
TikTok
shoes
video.
to fill. She had
Oh
big
yeah,
shoes to fill, you know?
totally. Yeah.
And I mean, just to go down that, like, rabbit hole a second, like, she had
Mm,
big shoes to fill with Jeff.
mm,
Jeff was such
mm.
a great complimentary, um
Yeah.
I mean, to see him come at the Zeitgeist and where he left and just hear him, you could hear him
Mm,
grow
mm,
as a guitar player. Um, big shoes to fill. What I love about Kiki is that
mm,
she and Jeff are very, very different.
mm,
And so you could
mm,
have all this love. And it's just like when a lot of people, were upset about Jack, or people were
mm.
upset when Melissa came to play bass or whatever.
Right,
They're like, oh, that's not Darcy. It's like you can
right.
love different iterations
Yeah,
of
yeah,
bands.
definitely,
Like I could still
definitely.
love an iteration of Pixies where Kim Deal is. I can love an
Right.
iteration of Pixies with Paz is there. I could love
That's true.
different
Yeah.
iterations, which is weird because sometimes people it's just like, no, it must be like this. But I think
Mm,
that when you have different energies,
mm,
it just
mm.
sparks different creative things. And
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
they work,
definitely.
sometimes they don't work. Sometimes people go
Yeah.
and do side projects.
Mm.
Swan, like
Yeah.
Swan's a side
Oh, right.
project where,
Forgot
which
about Swan.
I loved Swan. Like
Huh.
I personally
Yeah,
loved
yeah.
Swan. I
Mm.
thought Swan was such a great band. But then later on, I would hear Tough
Yeah,
Times,
yeah.
Bad Energy, and it's like,
Come in.
really? It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, and he's talked about it vocally in the
Yeah,
press,
yeah,
like. But it's funny when you hear
yeah.
a lot of times when you hear albums and you're like, man,
Mm.
that's such a great album, and then you hear people go, horrible times, we were gonna break
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
I really like that
Uh,
band Chavez that the one guy from Zwan was in. His old band, Chavez.
yeah,
They were
I
good.
am a I'm also a fan of Slint. I'm a
Oh
huge fan
yeah.
of Slint. Yeah,
I love
Slint is a
Slint
great
too.
band. Um, I think Spiderland just had their like
Really.
30th anniversary
Ah,
for
wow.
Spiderland. That's
That's
a
a good
great,
record
great
too.
band. Yeah, it's a great record.
Mm.
Um, and that's the thing. I remember that band. I learned about that band by going into a local record shop,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you get. I was buying like a Jesus Lizard album,
Mm. Mm.
and the guy behind it's like, oh, if you like them, listen to this,
Mm-hmm. Mm.
and
Yeah.
that was the way that we got music. It's not the case anymore. So that's what I'm kind of hoping that, these little types of things maybe make a difference. Decide it's so cool that you came
Mhm.
and on and did this. I did that. We had a hard time scheduling this. We've
Yeah,
been trying
that's
to do this
sucker.
for a long time, but we're on.
I know.
I think it's midnight over here in
Okay, it's late.
10 a.m. where you
Oh
are.
wow.
I'm so stoked that you came on here. You are
Yeah.
truly like um I was telling Desmond, I said Josiah is one of my favorite people in the world. Like I don't get to talk to him a lot. I said that he's like when you're in Josiah's presence, I said there's just something very calming about Josiah. So what are you guys gonna do now? You've got your
Well,
second album done. You
well,
got enough for a third or fourth, apparently.
pretty much. But it's a weird time that, like a lot of people aren't putting out albums. So like
Yeah.
whenever I talk to like industry people are like, don't put out another album. Just put out singles, and I've been talking to some record labels about maybe putting out our next one, and they want to put out albums, because they're record
Yeah.
labels. But
Do you think
I
that
don't know.
that model is going to change anytime soon? I always feel like it's got to soon to catch up with
Um,
everything.
mm,
Um, because
I
it
mean,
feels like it can't keep existing the way that it is. Artists aren't getting paid. Their songs are getting streamed by sometimes the millions, and they're not
mm,
getting paid for it. Their songs are
yeah,
used in influencers and content creator videos, which
mm,
those content creators are getting millions,
mm,
right? They're getting
yeah,
millions using songs of artists, but the artists aren't getting money. But Spotify
no,
and the,
yeah.
places are like, "Oh, but you're getting exposure from the video."
It's tough times for all artists, really. Even with AI and stuff, um,
Yeah,
kind of stealing all our work. you know.
yeah,
Um, but you know what? I think as an artist, like you have to have your hands in multiple pots. Now you can't just be a songwriter, you can't just be a guitarist, you can't just be a singer. You have to do everything, you know.
yeah. Like, I see Maddie's doing, like, all the graphic designs and graphic
Mm,
arts to make the videos and stuff, so now you've
mm,
gotta be a graphic designer, now you gotta
mm.
be a videographer, now you
Right.
know how to do now you need to know how to do digital art. So it
Yeah.
is I think it's easier, but it's also more difficult, and it's a
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
lot more work in a different way.
It really is.
Because maybe before you were just, like, touring, living out of a van, and that's
Mm,
tough,
mm,
but this is also tough too, trying
mm.
to get people's attention within 15
Yeah.
seconds.
Totally.
'Cause that's what you need, 15
I
seconds to
know.
capture someone's attention, and you've got 15 seconds to make an impression
Mm,
before the next reel. So
totally.
you've got 15 seconds for them to go, "Hey, I kinda like this, let's click on it
Mm,
to hear
mm.
more." But
Yeah.
if you don't make it in that 15 seconds, they're just like, swipe away. So I think
Yeah.
like there's crazy pressure.
It's really I don't know, discouraging to say the least,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's either you adapt or you die. you know.
Yeah, it's but it it boggles my mind, and I don't know, and I don't understand, like, the bigger parts of the music industry enough to,
Mm,
because I kinda think, like, can't, like, all the, like, super rich people, like the Jay-Z's and the can't
yeah.
they all get together and make a better platform that's more
Mm,
fair? Or can't everybody just protest and pull all their songs off of something and say, "We're all gonna collectively pool because
mm,
it's not worth it," but at the
yeah.
same time, like, and I have friends that are, like, indie artists saying, "I don't wanna put my stuff on there because my stuff doesn't show up on the algorithm." And I'm like, "Yeah, but if you" the flip side, though, is if you don't put it on there, I discover a lot sometimes now since COVID, like,
Mm,
I do the enhanced playlist on Spotify
uh,
where their AI algorithm looks at what I'm listening to and finds other things that it recommends. I'm not gonna
okay.
lie, I've discovered a
Good.
lot of bands that way.
Yeah.
And
Same here.
so it's a double-edged sword because it's kind of
Yeah.
like I am finding new music, and then if I like them, I will go buy their stuff,
Yeah.
but it's you're kind of in that weird position of, like, you're supporting something that's doing harm, but at the same
Mm,
time, this is the only way that you can discover
yeah.
music because we don't have a lot of people. I don't know if a lot of people listen to actual radio stations anymore.
Mm.
You know, they subscribe to, like, satellite radio or
Yeah.
something, but just like we were talking about in the beginning, like, college radios
Mm,
just kind of play random things, indie
mm.
things. Um, so,
Yeah.
like, that's definitely missed. Any band that you could record, what band would it be?
Oh man.
You've recorded a lot of different bands, and you've done stuff with a lot of different bands, but is there
Yeah.
one that you haven't yet that you really like, your dream?
Hmm. You know, I guess I haven't really thought about that. I wouldn't mind working with Martin Kohler. That would be cool. Like Wet Leg, I like them. I think they're
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
I don't know. I got to record Idols. Did I tell you about that?
Oh, no.
For Part-Time Punks,
Oh,
radio
nice.
show here in LA. That was
Oh,
pretty
that's
cool.
yeah,
That was
that's
like
neat.
kind of right before they blew up. Yeah. It was a live session. So I had the whole band in the other room here. And
Yeah,
I just recorded what happened in the other room. But it's pretty intense. You know, those
yeah.
guys were like tough guys.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
This was
Thanks for
so much
having me.
fun, um,
Yeah.
and, I would love for you to come back sometime with Maddie too, so
Oh,
we
yeah.
can
Yeah.
talk to her. That
I'll
would
get
be
her in here.
awesome.
Yeah.
Because, like
That
I
would be
said,
good.
I'm a super fan. Like, I'm super fan over her. Like, she probably needs to put, like, a restraining order on me because 'cause I'm just like